I arrived at my dad's retirement gala and overheard, "She's just here to ruin the mood." My stepmother smiled coldly and said, "Security, kick her and her annoying daughter out." I walked out, called my advisor and moved $60,000 out of the joint investment fund. 20 minutes later my phone exploded, 49 missed calls. I stood outside the hotel ballroom in my best dress, holding my daughter's hand when I heard it through the cracked door. "She's just here to ruin the mood." My stepmother Diane's voice was unmistakable, that syrupy tone she used when she wanted to sound concerned but was really twisting the knife. I froze. My 7-year-old Lily tugged my arm. "Mommy, aren't we going in?" Before I could answer, Diane appeared in the doorway with that smile plastered on her face, the one that never reached her eyes. "Oh, there you are, Harper. You know, I think it's best if you don't stay. Your father's retirement gala is such an important night and—" She glanced down at Lily with thinly veiled disgust. "Children can be so disruptive." "Security." She actually snapped her fingers. "Please escort them out." Do you think I should have made a scene right there? Part of me wanted to. But honestly, I was too shocked to even process what was happening. 2 security guards approached, looking uncomfortable. One of them, a younger guy, wouldn't even make eye contact with me. "Ma'am, we've been asked to." "I know what you've been asked to do," I said quietly. I looked past them into the ballroom where my father stood near the podium, laughing with some business associates. He hadn't even noticed. Or maybe he had and just chose not to intervene. That thought made my stomach turn. Lily's grip on my hand tightened. "Mommy." "It's okay, sweetheart," I said, though my voice cracked. "We're leaving." Diane's smile widened. "So good of you to understand, Harper. Family is just so important, and tonight needs to be perfect for your father." The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd been in our lives for exactly 18 months, married my dad 6 months after my mom passed away from cancer, and suddenly she was the authority on what our family needed. I wanted to say something cutting, something that would wipe that smug expression off her face, but Lily was watching me and I didn't want her to see me fall apart. So I walked out. I held my head high, took my daughter's hand and walked through that lobby like I owned the place. But the second we got to my car, I sat in the driver's seat and just trembled. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't get the key in the ignition. "Mommy, why did that lady kick us out?" Lily asked from the back seat. "How do you explain to a 7-year-old that sometimes people are just cruel? That sometimes family hurts you worse than strangers ever could?" "She's just having a hard time, baby," I lied. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes." But sitting there in that parking lot, something shifted inside me. I'd spent the last year and a half trying to be understanding. Trying to give Diane the benefit of the doubt because Dad seemed happy. Making excuses for every snide comment, every exclusion, every passive-aggressive text message about how I needed to give them space to build their new life together. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was suddenly crystal clear. You see, when my mom died, she left me a substantial inheritance, about $120,000. Dad had convinced me to put half of it into a joint investment fund he was managing. Family wealth, he'd called it. We'll grow it together and eventually it'll be there for Lily's education. I trusted him. Even after he married Diane so quickly. Even after she started making decisions about our money without consulting me. Even after I noticed that the investment statements were becoming vaguer and vaguer. I called my financial advisor, Marcus. He answered on the second ring. "Harper, everything okay? I need to move $60,000 out of the joint fund with my father. Tonight. Right now." There was a pause. "Harper, it's 8 p.m. on a Saturday. The markets are—" "I don't care about the markets, Marcus. I want my money out of that account and into my personal account. Can you do it or not? What would you have done in my position? Would you have waited? Tried to talk to your dad first?" Marcus must have heard something in my voice because he didn't argue. "Give me 20 minutes. I'll need you to confirm some security questions, but yes, I can initiate an emergency transfer." I spent those 20 minutes sitting in that parking lot watching well-dressed people walk into my father's retirement party. People who would toast to his 40 years of service, his dedication, his integrity. The word made me want to laugh. Or cry. I wasn't sure which. My phone buzzed with a confirmation text from Marcus. The transfer was complete. $60,000. My mother's money, my money, was now safely in an account that only I controlled. That's when my phone started ringing. Dad's number flashed on the screen. I didn't answer. It rang again. And again. Then Diane's number. Then Dad again. I watched the calls come in one after another, my phone vibrating in my hand like an angry bee. By the time the calls stopped, I had 49 missed calls and 17 text messages. Most of them from Dad, increasingly frantic. "Harper, what did you do? Call me immediately. This is unacceptable." You're making a huge mistake. And then the one that made my blood run cold. How could you do this to us? After everything we've done for you. Everything they'd done for me? They kicked me and my daughter out of a party. But apparently in their minds I was the villain here. I started the car. Lily had fallen asleep in her booster seat, her head tilted to the side, completely unaware of the war I'd just started. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I caught a glimpse of the hotel ballroom through the large windows. The party was in full swing. My father was at the podium now, probably giving his speech, thanking everyone for their support over the years. He hadn't even noticed I was gone. Or maybe he had and he just didn't care until his money was gone too. I drove home in silence, my mind racing. Part of me felt guilty. This was my father after all. The man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd walked me down the aisle at my wedding, who'd held Lily in the hospital the day she was born. But another part of me, a stronger part, felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power. Control. For the first time since Diane entered our lives, I'd drawn a line. And honestly, felt incredible. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Dad. We need to talk. Tomorrow. My house. 10 a.m. Don't make this worse than it already is. I turned off my phone and carried my sleeping daughter inside. As I tucked her into bed, I wondered what tomorrow would bring. Would Dad apologize? Would he even understand why I'd done what I did? Or would Diane be there playing the victim, convincing him that I was the problem? Whatever happened, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to back down. Not this time. I'd spent too long being the understanding daughter, the one who made peace, the one who swallowed her hurt for the sake of family harmony. Tomorrow they were going to hear exactly what I thought. And what I'd discovered about Diane that they definitely didn't know I knew. You'll want to hear what happens next. Trust me, this is just the beginning. I showed up at Dad's house at exactly 10 a.m. Diane answered the door in a silk robe, looking like she'd just stepped out of a spa. Oh, Harper. You actually came. She said it like she was surprised I had the audacity. Where's my father? I walked past her without waiting for an invitation. Dad was in his study, sitting behind the massive oak desk that used to be in his office. He looked tired. Older somehow. Sit down, Harper. I'll stand. He sighed, rubbing his temples. What you did last night was completely inappropriate. That money was supposed to be my money, Dad. Mom left it to me. We were investing it for the family. For Lily's future. I laughed and it came out harsher than I intended. Really? Is that why the last statement I saw showed a $15,000 withdrawal for home renovations? Last I checked, I don't live here anymore. His face went red. Diane appeared in the doorway, right on cue. Harper, you're being incredibly selfish. Your father has worked his entire life to build security for this family and you've been married to him for 18 months, Diane. Don't talk to me about family. Do you think I was too harsh? Maybe. But I was done playing nice. Dad stood up, his voice rising. Diane is my wife. She's part of this family whether you like it or not. She kicked me and my daughter out of your retirement party. She called security like we were criminals. You were late, Harper. The program was starting and I was 10 minutes late because Lily couldn't find her shoes. And even if I was an hour late, you don't throw out your own daughter. My voice cracked and I hated myself for it. I didn't want to cry in front of them. Diane crossed her arms. Maybe if you learned to manage your time better. Stop, Dad said quietly. We both looked at him. He sank back into his chair, suddenly looking every bit of his 65 years. Harper, I'm asking you to put the money back. Please. We had plans for those investments. What plans? I asked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like Diane's been treating my inheritance like her personal shopping fund. That's ridiculous, Diane snapped. Everything I've purchased has been for our home, for our life together. Your father deserves to enjoy his retirement. With my mother's money? The silence that followed was deafening. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. And that told me everything I needed to know. I'm not putting it back, I said softly. And I want a full accounting of every dollar that's been withdrawn from that fund since you two got married. Diane's face went pale. Just for a second, but I caught it. You have no right. I have every right. It was a joint account, which means every transaction should have had my approval. Did it, Dad? He still wouldn't look at me. My heart sank. My own father had been lying to me for over a year. I walked to the door, then turned back. I hired a lawyer yesterday. He'll be requesting all the financial records by end of business tomorrow. If you don't comply, we'll subpoena them. Harper, please don't do this, Dad said, and for the first time he sounded scared. Let's just talk about this as a family. We stopped being a family the night you let your wife throw me out of the most important event of your life, I said. Figure out whose side you're on, Dad. Because right now it doesn't feel like mine. I left before he could respond. before I could see the look on his face and lose my resolve. My phone rang as I drove away. It was my Uncle Pete, Dad's younger brother. We'd always been close. He was the one who'd helped me move into my first apartment, who'd slipped me extra money during college when Dad was being strict about budgets. "Harper, your dad just called me. Said you're causing problems over some money." "Uncle Pete, did he tell you what happened last night? Something about you being upset at his party?" I told him everything. The security guards, the missing money, Diane's spending, all of it. When I finished, there was a long silence. "That woman," he finally said, and his voice was hard. I knew she was trouble. "Harper, I want you to know something. Whatever you need, a place to stay, money, legal help, you call me. Your dad's not thinking straight and someone needs to be on your side. Imagine having your uncle believe you when your own father won't." It made me want to cry all over again. "There's something else," I said. "I've been doing some digging into Diane's background. Uncle Pete, did you know she was married twice before Dad? And both times she walked away with a substantial settlement." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I think she's running a pattern. And Dad's her biggest payday yet. Very soon I was going to prove it. And when I did, everything was going to change." 3 days later, I got a call from someone I never expected. Diane's ex-husband, Richard. "Miss Harper? You don't know me, but I heard through a mutual contact that you've been asking questions about Diane." My heart started racing. "How did you get my number?" "Your Uncle Pete knows my business partner. Look, I don't usually do this, but can we meet? There are things you need to know." We met at a coffee shop across town. Richard was in his 50s, well-dressed, but he had this haunted look in his eyes. He slid a manila folder across the table to me. "What is this?" "Proof," he said simply. "Diane didn't just leave me. She systematically drained our joint accounts, took out credit cards in my name, and convinced me to invest in a business opportunity that didn't exist. By the time I figured it out, she was gone and I was $200,000 in debt." I opened the folder. Bank statements, credit card bills, legal documents. My hands were shaking. "She has a type," Richard continued. "Successful older men, preferably widowed or divorced. She moves fast, isolates them from their families, and then starts controlling the finances. I tried to warn your father when I heard they got engaged, but she'd already convinced him I was just a bitter ex." "Why are you telling me this now?" He looked down at his coffee. "Because I saw the photo from his retirement gala. She was wearing the exact same smile she wore at our wedding. And I couldn't live with myself if I didn't at least try. I drove straight to Dad's house. I didn't call first. I just showed up with that folder in my hands and I knocked until he answered. "Harper, this isn't a good time." "Where is she?" "Diane's at her yoga class, but..." I pushed past him and dumped the folder contents onto his dining room table. "Read it. All of it." Dad stared at the papers, his face going white. "Where did you get this?" "From Richard. Her second husband. The one she told you was abusive and crazy, right?" "Guess what, Dad? He's neither. He's just broke because she destroyed him financially. What would you do if you found out someone you trusted was lying about everything?" Dad sat down heavily, picking up page after page. Bank statements showing transfers. Credit applications. Email exchanges where Diane was clearly manipulating Richard into investments. His hands were shaking. "This can't be real," he whispered. "There's more," I said quietly. "I hired a private investigator. Dad, Diane's been accessing your retirement accounts. She's been transferring small amounts, $2000 here, $3,000 there, into an account you don't know about. Over the past year, she's moved almost $80,000. He looked up at me and I saw something break in his eyes. "No, Harper, you're wrong. She wouldn't." The front door opened. Diane walked in, yoga mat under her arm, and froze when she saw us both standing there with papers spread across the table. "What's going on?" Her voice was calm, but I saw her eyes dart to the documents. "Diane," Dad said slowly, "I need you to explain something to me." She smiled, that same cold smile from the gala. "Of course, darling. What is it?" I pulled out my phone and played a recording. My private investigator had gotten creative. He'd posed as a financial advisor and called Diane last week. Her voice came through crystal clear. "Yes, I need to move another $5,000 from the retirement fund. My husband doesn't need to know about this. He's not good with details anymore." The color drained from her face. "Pack your things," Dad said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I want you out of my house by tonight. What happened next you won't believe. But you need to hear it." Diane didn't pack. Instead, she started crying huge, dramatic sobs that would have won her an Oscar. "How could you believe her over me? She's been trying to destroy us from the beginning." Dad just stood there, staring at the papers on the table. He picked up one of the bank statements. "Diane, this is your signature. This is our account. Where did this money go? She switched tactics instantly. The tears stopped like someone had flipped a switch. Fine. Yes, I moved some money. But it was for us, Gerald. I was planning a surprise trip for your retirement. A month in Italy. I was going to tell you at the party, but then she ruined everything. Actually laughed. A month in Italy costs $80,000? First class, luxury hotels, private tours. Yes. Because your father deserves the best. She turned to him, grabbing his hands. Gerald, please. You know how she's always been jealous of our relationship. She can't stand seeing you happy with someone new. For a terrible moment I thought it might actually work. Dad's expression softened slightly. Then Uncle Pete walked in. I'd texted him from the car and he'd driven straight over. Gerald, Pete said quietly. There's no trip to Italy. I called the bank. That money went to an account in the Cayman Islands. In her name only. The room went dead silent. Diane's mask finally cracked completely. You have no right to access my private financial information. It's Gerald's money, Pete said. Which makes it very much our business. And here's something else you might want to know. Diane's been meeting with a divorce attorney for the past 6 weeks. Dad sat down like his legs had given out. What? I pulled out another paper from my folder. One I'd been saving. Her attorney is specializing in maximizing divorce settlements. According to the consultation notes my investigator found, she was planning to file right after your retirement finalized. That way she could claim half of your pension, half the house, and walk away clean. Do you think she actually loved him at all? Or was it all just a con from day one? Diane's face twisted into something ugly. You self-righteous little bitch. You think you're so smart? Your father was easy. He was so desperate for companionship after your mother died, he practically threw money at me. And you, she laughed harshly, you made it even easier, always trying to be the good daughter, always trying to make peace. Pathetic. Get out, Dad said. His voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. Get out of my house right now or I'm calling the police. You can't kick me out. I have rights. This is my house too. Actually, Uncle Pete said, pulling out his phone, the house is still in Gerald's name only. You never completed the paperwork to add your name to the deed. I made sure of that when you first asked Gerald about it. Funny how that kept getting delayed, isn't it? I stared at my uncle in shock. He'd been protecting Dad all along even when I didn't know it. Diane grabbed her purse, her face contorted with rage. You'll regret this, all of you. My lawyer will destroy you in court. Your lawyer will have a hard time explaining the offshore accounts and forged transfer authorizations, Pete said calmly. We've already filed a report with the police. They'll want to talk to you about financial fraud. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. The three of us just stood there in the silence. Then Dad turned to me and I saw tears in his eyes. Harper, I don't know what to say. I was so blind. So stupid. Dad. No, let me finish. He took a shaky breath. I let her throw you out of my party. My own daughter. My granddaughter. I chose her over you and I. His voice broke. I don't know if you can ever forgive me. Uncle Pete quietly excused himself, leaving us alone. I wanted to stay angry. Part of me wanted to make him suffer the way I'd suffered. But looking at my father, really looking at him, I saw a lonely old man who'd been manipulated by someone he trusted. Someone who'd preyed on his grief. She told me you were jealous, Dad continued, that you couldn't accept me moving on from your mother. And I believed her because it was easier than admitting I'd rushed into something stupid. I was just so lonely. I know, Dad. Your mother would be ashamed of me. I sat down next to him. Mom would want you to be happy. She just would have wanted you to be smart about it. He actually smiled a little at that. She always was the smart one. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Dad said, I'll pay you back. Every penny she took from your inheritance. It might take me some time, but we'll figure it out, I said. Together. He pulled me into a hug and for the first time in 18 months, it felt like I had my father back. But the story wasn't quite over yet. Because 2 weeks later something happened that none of us saw coming. Something that would change everything one more time. 2 weeks later Uncle Pete called. Harper, come to your dad's house. No. Bring Lily. When we arrived, Dad was sitting with Uncle Pete and a man I didn't recognize. Dad's eyes were red. Harper, sit down, Dad said, his voice shaking. I need to tell you something. The stranger introduced himself as Tom Chin, Mom's estate attorney. There's been an issue with your mother's will that needs to be addressed. My stomach dropped. What issue? Dad couldn't look at me. Your mother left you $340,000, not $120,000. She instructed me to give it all to you on your 30th birthday. That was 8 months ago. I felt the room spin. What are you saying? I kept the rest hidden, Dad whispered. I told myself it was to protect you, but really, I wanted control. After your mother died, I felt lost, and controlling that money made me feel like I still mattered. Then Diane found out about it and started pressuring me to invest it. I was so desperate to make her happy that He stopped, tears streaming down his face. By the time you pulled out the $60,000, only about $185,000 was left. Do you think you could forgive something like that? Tom spoke up. Your father came to me last week and confessed everything. We've spent 2 weeks liquidating his retirement accounts and refinancing his house. As of this morning, the full $340,000 has been restored to your account. Plus interest. He slid a bank statement across the table. $387,000. I'll have to work another few years, Dad said quietly. My retirement is gone. The house has a mortgage again. But it's your money, Harper. I stole it from you just as much as Diane did. He also filed a formal complaint against himself with the Bar Association, Uncle Pete added. He could lose his law license. I looked at my father. He looked broken, but for the first time in years he looked honest. What happens if I don't press charges? I asked Tom. Harper, no, Dad said immediately. Don't. I'm not doing it for you, I interrupted. I'm doing it for Lily. And for me. I don't want years of court battles. I just want my family back. Dad broke down completely. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I forgive you, Dad. But things change now. No more secrets. You're going to therapy. And you're babysitting Lily every Saturday. He laughed through tears. Deal. Over the next months, Dad kept his promises. Therapy every week. Babysitting every Saturday. He sold the house, moved to a small condo, and slowly rebuilt his life. We rebuilt our relationship too. It was hard. There were angry days. But he showed up consistently, just being a dad again. 6 months later, Dad called. I met someone. At my therapy group. Her name is Ruth. She's a retired teacher. I'd like you to meet her if you're okay with that. I was nervous, but I said yes. Ruth was nothing like Diane. Warm, genuine, and when she met Lily, she asked about her favorite books instead of judging her. A year later, we stood in Dad's small backyard for his real retirement party. No fancy hotel. Just family. Dad raised his glass. I want to thank everyone, especially Harper. I failed you terribly, but you gave me a chance to do better. I'll spend the rest of my life earning that forgiveness. Lily tugged my dress. Mommy, why is Grandpa crying? Because he's happy, baby. And I think he finally was. We all were. Thank you for listening to my story. What do you think? Did I forgive too easily, or was giving him a second chance the right move? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the story, please like it. And if something didn't sit right with you, share your opinion below. Thank you for watching.